But now I have great pleasure in introducing our next speaker in this session, who is Simon Dalton, who is in the Business Development Group for Lockheed Martin. And this topic, making big data work, is so important, but it has become an overused term, but there's real value in understanding what we can do with information. Simon was previously Strategic Programs Director for Lockheed Martin, long career understanding this sector, and academic qualifications include aeronautics, engineering and so on, so no doubt you've got opinions about drones as well. Thanks, Simon.
Okay. Thank you, Elmer. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. You must be wondering, what's a large defence company doing at a postal conference? Well, let me explain that Lockheed Martin's had a long pedigree in the postal sector for the last 40 years. We have major customers, including the US Postal Service, Royal Mail, Post Nord, Australia Post, and we've been developing technology solutions for material handling, e-commerce, recognition. So a long pedigree, but what I'm here to talk about today is a little bit about how we can solve some of the problems of e-commerce using big data. And it's a simple example. I can't cover the whole subject, but hopefully it'll stimulate some thought as to how we can cover some of the things that Alan alluded to in processing large volumes of data, how we can understand customers better. But I'm going to focus on operational efficiency. The techniques are the same, but it's just an example. So we all know that data is increasing at an incredible rate. And the purpose of this chart is just to leave you with a simple message. When the first Apollo mission put a man on the moon, there was 64K kilobytes of application space and data. So we managed to put a man on the moon with very little data. Obviously now we're going further afield, and the e-commerce industry is expanding at a huge rate. So a modern operation will be collecting data. If we look at the day in the life of a parcel, the data starts right at the beginning when somebody pushes that button, I want to buy that item. That's when the sequence of events starts. And all through the journey, that parcel will be picking up information. And quite often that will go into a number of different databases. It'll sometimes get lost, won't be used. And I calculated for a modern automation system, IT system, one parcel can probably generate over 1 megabyte of data. And that could include images as well, each side of the image. So big data, we all know the concept of it. It's something that's so large that traditional processing techniques won't handle. And it's quite interesting to know that postal operators, less than 40% of them have a big data strategy. So there's some real good examples out in the industry with DHL, UPS, but I think what everybody needs to think about is how you're going to use that data. Now, the area I'm going to focus on is operations, and the real trick is understanding the context of that data. And we heard that on some of the presentations earlier, understanding what their customers want, understanding the delivery methods, but also when we collect that data, make sure we understand that context. So I've come up with a fairly simple model which talks about efficiency based on the 4 V's of big data. So this is fairly traditional stuff. I'm not a big data expert, but everybody knows that the 4 V's include the scale of the data, the speed at which you can collect it, and again, Alan alluded to one of the challenges. If you want real-time information, how quickly can you collect that data and process it? Different forms of data and the quality of it. And actually, quality can be interesting. It can be good and bad. So it's not necessarily a difficult thing to have bad data as long as you know it's bad data. And the whole secret of driving up efficiency, starting at the simplest level with the sorting operations right up to the enterprise, is to add the context. So I'm going to take an example that we've used for Royal Mail that's driven huge operational efficiency over the last 10 years since this system's been implemented. It's a centralised events platform. It does all the recognition of every mail piece in the Royal Mail operation. It processes 40-odd million items a day. We collect every bit of information about that mail piece that's on the item. We track it right the way through the system. We know its full history. And we store all that information for 30 days. What we've done, as an example, is we've gone back over a year and collected all of that data. And you can imagine how large that is. And the way that we've managed to process it and bring it down to something sensible is to record the context as well. So this is really key. So if your engineers, your IT departments are creating databases, make them think about the context of the data first. Because it's too easy for an engineer to say, oh, I'll record that, I'll record this, we might need this, we might need that. And there's lots of techniques for actually defining context. We all do it, and we don't realize it when we define our business processes. There's several techniques around describing transactions. That can be a system technique, that can be a business technique, and then sequence diagrams. There's lots of tools out there to define the context of the data, but record it, store it, because that's going to be so valuable. But don't forget about offline data creation as well. We've developed some techniques that after the mail piece has been delivered, we can take the image and analyze it. We can find information that's missing, we can cleanse the data, we can add extra information, and that all helps the richness of the context. So we have online and offline contextual information. To crunch it, I'm not going to go into the technology that we use, but the most important thing to take away from this chart is the context definitions. So you can have all the operational data that you like, but you can't make those efficiencies around capacity planning, last mile optimization or network planning without that context definition. We talked about visualization earlier. So you can only visualize data if it's meaningful. And again, we've developed techniques that build up a hierarchical picture of that network. So you can drill down from the top level right through the network to see where the efficiency is being made, or where they're being lost. You can also then replay that data in a simulation mode, model what-ifs, and do planning scenarios. And that's so key if you want to drive efficiency through the operation. Now, in terms of an architecture for doing that, we've developed a new solution that basically takes the building blocks of the whole operation, all the different aspects from managing the operations around the yard, logistics, sorting, recognition, and then providing all the visualization for planning and production and control, to manage the whole operation in a site. Now, the key to all of this is the integration layer. Without that, you can't really feed the operational data stores, and then finally, you can't feed the big data processing engine. And the same works at the network level. Okay, you've got all of that information across the whole network, including route scheduling, optimization, pre-advised data coming in, final track and trace information coming from handhelds. Again, integrate it together, and then you can add it to your big data store. So it's a very simple concept, but that context is so important. And we're still on the journey. I don't think we've solved all of the problems yet. You know, we're maturing up this curve, and I think we're probably in the operational analytics phase. We still haven't really got to the enterprise operations level. That's the next stage, but we're getting some fantastic results in the network operations. Royal Mail has managed to reduce its number of sites from 70 down to 40. We've optimized the logistics in terms of vehicles. We've managed to reduce the number of machines for automation. We've managed to increase the throughput through peak processing. We've reduced headcounts, and the list goes on. So the techniques are well known. There's some very good big data analytics techniques and tools out there. And operations data is actually one of the safest ones to talk about, because as long as you use that data to improve operations, that's fine. But as soon as you get into personal information, security aspects, then that gets a lot more difficult. And that's where you've really got to choose your technology carefully. So you don't really want to go into the cloud with people's names and addresses and you have to consider all the security aspects. But again, context is key. So the conclusion, well, there's got to be some benefits from all of this. So we've already seen benefits at the operational capacity planning level. I've mentioned some examples. Last mile optimization is absolutely key, and we've heard a lot about some of the challenges that we've got there. But again, using these techniques, that makes that a lot easier. But the ultimate goal is really to get that customer loyalty. You know, if you can get that enterprise level, you can bring all those different sources of information together, your customer databases, the preferred delivery methods, where they want their last mile items left, then you can really drive up that customer loyalty and quality of service. So simple thoughts. Thank you for your time. Come and talk to us on the stand if you've got any questions. And if you want to contact me, here are the details. Thank you.
That was great, Simon. What a fantastic sort of range of topics here. If I can pick up on the customer hassle-free theme, which is very, very appropriate. But in getting that customer hassle-free, the end-to-end solution involves many, many logistic steps. Doing that efficiently, effectively, getting through the logistics until you appear at the doorstep. Of course, we've seen other speakers talk about the efforts being put in terms of data management. And I think it just highlights the range so perfectly. The scope for innovation, for doing better, rests along all elements of that chain, and we've heard about the steps being taken.